Saddam Hussein's billion-dollar bank raid, the largest bank robbery in history, wasn't pulled off by criminals. It was done by a dictator. In March 2003, right before the U.S. was about to bomb Iraq, Saddam Hussein sent his son Qusay to the Central Bank of Iraq. Qusay showed up with a handwritten note from his father. The note said to hand over the money. The bank employees had no choice. Qusay walked out with nearly $1 billion in cash, just loaded it into trucks and drove away. When U.S. troops invaded, they found about $650 million hidden in Saddam's palace. Gold bars, cash, everything stashed in the walls. The remaining $350 million was never found. Saddam was executed in 2006. Qusay died in a gunfight with U.S. troops in 2003. Whatever they did with that missing money, they took the secret to their graves. This wasn't technically a robbery since Saddam controlled the country, but he stole from his own nation's bank right before an invasion. It remains the largest bank heist ever recorded. The Isabella Gardner Museum Heist. On March 18, 1990, two guys dressed as police officers rang the doorbell at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston at 1:24 a.m. They said they were responding to a disturbance call. The security guard broke protocol and let them in. Big mistake. The fake cops immediately tied up both guards with duct tape and locked them in the basement. For the next 81 minutes, these thieves walked through the museum and stole 13 pieces of art. They cut paintings right out of their frames. They took works by Rembrandt, Vermeer, and Degas. The total value is estimated at over $500 million. The stolen Vermeer painting, The Concert, is one of only 34 known Vermeer paintings in the world. It's considered the most valuable missing painting on Earth. The thieves made 2 trips to their car. They knew exactly where the security alarm printouts were kept and took those too. They left behind other valuable pieces, including a Titian painting worth even more money. No one has ever been arrested. None of the art has been recovered. The museum still displays the empty frames on the walls as a reminder of what was stolen. They're offering a $10 million reward for information, the largest reward ever offered by a private institution. The FBI believes the Boston Mafia was involved, but after 35 years, it remains completely unsolved. The Antwerp Diamond Heist. In February 2003, a man named Leonardo Notarbartolo pulled off what people call the heist of the century. Notarbartolo wasn't some random thief. He spent years preparing. He rented an office inside the Antwerp World Diamond Center in Belgium. He posed as a diamond merchant. He even rented an apartment next to the building, all so he could study the security. The vault was 2 floors underground and protected by 10 layers of security. It had a lock with 100 million possible combinations: infrared sensors, seismic sensors, Doppler radar, and a magnetic field detector. On the weekend of February 15, 2003, Notarbartolo and his team bypassed everything. They had sprayed hairspray on the heat sensors earlier to disable them. They used aluminum plates to trick the magnetic sensors. They had a custom 3-dimensional key for the vault door. Once inside, they used a hand-cranked drill to break open 109 safe deposit boxes. They stole over $100 million in diamonds, gold, and jewelry. Then they made a stupid mistake. After the heist, Notarbartolo dumped garbage from the robbery near a highway. A landowner found the trash and called police. Inside the garbage were items directly linked to Notarbartolo, including DNA on a half-eaten sandwich. He was arrested when he returned to the Diamond Center the following Friday. He got 10 years in prison but was released in 2009. He was arrested again in 2013 for violating parole and served until 2017. Most of the diamonds have never been recovered. The Dunbar armored robbery. In 1997, a guy named Alan Pace was working as a safety inspector for Dunbar Armored, a company that moves cash around Los Angeles. Pace spent his days photographing the facility, studying the cameras, timing everything, and then he got an idea. He recruited 5 of his childhood friends and planned the perfect inside job. On September 12th, 1997, right before midnight, they all attended a house party together to establish an alibi. Then they left, put on masks, and drove to the Dunbar facility. Pace had keys. He knew exactly when the vault would be open because Friday nights meant large amounts of cash were being moved. He knew where every camera pointed. The crew waited in the cafeteria and ambushed the guards, one by one, as they came in for lunch breaks. They loaded $18.9 million in cash into a truck and drove away. It was the largest cash robbery in U.S. history at the time. They left almost no evidence behind, just one plastic piece from a U-Haul truck taillight. The crew waited 6 months before trying to spend the money. They hired a lawyer and used front companies to launder it through real estate and fake businesses. 2 years later, one of the crew members, Eugene Hill, made a critical mistake. He paid a real estate broker friend with a stack of cash that still had the original bank currency straps around it. The broker went to the police. Hill was arrested and immediately confessed. He gave up everyone. Alan Pace got 24 years in prison. He was released in 2020. The others got between 8 and 17 years. But only about $5 million of the $18.9 million was ever recovered. The rest, roughly $13 million, is still missing. The Brinksmat Gold Heist. On November 26, 1983, 6 men wearing balaclavas broke into a Brinksmat warehouse at London's Heathrow Airport. It was an inside job. One of the security guards, Anthony Black, was in on it. The crew thought they were going to steal $4 million in cash. But when they opened the vault, they found something way better. 3 tons of gold, 7,000 gold bars worth $37 million. They tied up the guards, loaded the gold into a van, and drove off. They even wished the guards a Merry Christmas on their way out. Stealing the gold was the easy part. Selling it was the problem. You can't just walk into a store with pure gold bars from a robbery. The bars were marked and traceable. So the gang melted down the gold and mixed it with copper and brass to change the purity. Then they sold it bit by bit. Police quickly figured out that Black was involved and followed the money trail. Some of the robbers were caught and convicted, but most of the gold was never recovered. Millions of dollars worth is still missing somewhere in England. The Securitas Depot Robbery. This is the UK's largest cash heist, and it involved kidnapping a bank manager and his family. On February 21st, 2006, a gang kidnapped Colin Dixon, the manager of a Securitas cash depot in Tonbridge, England. They also grabbed his wife and young son, holding them hostage. The kidnappers forced Dixon to go to work the next morning like nothing was wrong. Once inside the depot, the gang followed him in. They were disguised and armed. They tied up 14 employees at gunpoint. Then they spent hours loading money into trucks. They stole 53 million pounds, which is about 70 million US dollars. They left behind another 154 million pounds because they physically couldn't carry any more. The gang had done surveillance for months. They even placed an insider at the depot to learn the routines. This was a professional, well-planned operation. But they got caught. Police found getaway vehicles with cash still inside. During raids, they recovered 9 million pounds in one location and 8 million in another. Several gang members fled to Morocco, where they spent money recklessly on houses and drugs. The gang leader, Lee Murray, was eventually arrested and sentenced to 25 years. Most of the crew got long prison sentences, but a significant amount of the cash was never recovered. The Banco Central Burglary. In August 2005, a group of thieves in Brazil pulled off one of the most elaborate heists ever, and it involved a tunnel. The gang rented a house in Fortaleza, Brazil, just 2 blocks from the Banco Central. They told neighbors they were opening a landscaping business, but in reality they were digging. For 3 months, they excavated a 78-meter tunnel from the house directly to the bank vault. That's 256 feet. They moved dirt, installed lighting, reinforced the walls. It was like an underground construction project. On the weekend of August 6, 2005, they broke through the reinforced concrete floor of the vault. They bypassed all the security systems from underground. Then they loaded up $71.6 million in cash. Police only recovered $3.8 million. The rest vanished. Some gang members were eventually caught, but most of the money was never found. The tunnel heist required engineering knowledge, months of physical labor, and incredible patience. It's one of the most ambitious bank robberies ever attempted. The Lufthansa Heist. On December 11, 1978, a crew connected to the Lucchese crime family hit the Lufthansa cargo terminal at JFK Airport in New York. They stole $5 million in cash and $875,000 in jewelry. At the time, it was the largest cash robbery in U.S. history. The heist was masterminded by Jimmy Burke, a mobster who got inside information from an airport worker named Louis Werner. The crew knew exactly when a huge shipment of cash would be sitting in the terminal. Masked gunmen went in, tied up the employees, grabbed 72 cartons of currency, and loaded everything into a van. The whole job took minutes. They drove to Canarsie, transferred the cash to another vehicle, and disappeared. The getaway driver, Parnell Edwards, was supposed to destroy the van. He didn't. Police found it with fingerprints and other evidence. That gave the FBI their first break. Jimmy Burke got paranoid. He was terrified someone would talk, so he started killing people. Associates, witnesses, anyone connected to the heist started turning up dead. At least 10 people were murdered. Despite a massive investigation, only Louis Werner was ever convicted. He got 15 years for giving inside information. The $5.8 million was never recovered. The Lufthansa heist became famous because of the movie Goodfellas. The film shows the robbery and the brutal aftermath, but in real life, it remains largely unsolved.